And welcome to the Twins Daily Postgame Pint, or the ninth inning nightcap, as it is almost tonight. We are in the bottom of the eighth inning. I'm going to pull up my chair here. And there are two outs already. Theo Barr on the mound trying to protect a one-run loss versus the Cubs. In what's been a little bit of a depressing game for the Twins. I am with me is Andrew Gebo of TwinsDaily.com and Rena Wang of TwinsDaily.com. Welcome. Thank you very much. The grand return of Rena Wang from a little bit of a hiatus. Right. Let's talk a little bit about this game. It's a 1-0 game in the bottom of the eighth, two outs. One of the things I always find interesting to kind of question is like, and this is what you run into if you're a writer in the press box with two outs in the bottom of the eighth. What's your story? Because here's what happens: it changes in the bottom of the ninth or the ninth inning, right? Like you're kind of stuck, and then you have to rewrite the story. Writers complain about this all the time, but it shouldn't necessarily, right? Hold on for a second. Am I still on the? Can you get one of you guys say something to me? Because
hello, John.
Okay, I'm not on StreamYard anymore. Something has just disrupted my feed. Okay, there we go. It shouldn't necessarily change that much, right? Like what happens in the ninth doesn't necessarily change what happened in the first 8 innings, right? So my question to you both is, if you have to write a headline for the first 7 2/3 innings of this game, what is it? And I'll let you battle out for who goes first.
All right. I mean, I would say at this point, my headline is going to be Kyle Hendricks frustrates the Minnesota Twins. Kyle Hendricks is one of those guys. When
you're giving credits to Hendricks. All right. Okay.
Yeah, he's got that 88-mile-an-hour fastball, and he sinks it, and he cuts it, and he's got the off-speed stuff. He's the guy you look at, and you're like, we should absolutely obliterate him. He throws in the 80s. Like, why are we not hitting him? But he just seems to get outs, and he gets weak contact, and he keeps hitters off balance.
So he's the Cubs version of Rich Hill? Is that what you're saying?
I would say maybe a slightly better version, but yeah, I mean, he's just one of those guys where you think you should just obliterate him, but you can't. So Kyle Hendricks frustrates the Minnesota Twins on the north side. That's my headline.
All right. Rena, you've got something or not?
Yeah. So initially, I had something going along the lines of with what Andrew said. Something along the lines of slowest velocity in MLB leads to as a lead. Now I'm thinking something else that we could do is like classic Minnesota finish. Second shutout of the season in the last week of a regular season or regular or something like that, where. Like Andrew said, you always have in the back of your mind how weak the NL Central is. So you think, the Cubs, maybe their record's a little overinflated. They've got Hendricks on the mound. But, I mean, the Twins are shut out pretty brutally tonight. They didn't have a lot of opportunities. It wasn't that left on base game that we saw like 3 nights ago.
I would agree with both of you. Like, to me, my headline on this is sort of Twins offense continues to struggle, right? Like, here's what Kyle Hendricks isn't. He's not left-handed. That which the Minnesota Twins have struggled against all season, right? And I'm willing to give him, I'm willing to give him the credit, a little bit of benefit of the doubt being in the NL Central and stuff. But ultimately, my biggest concern about this team going into the postseason, and my biggest concern that has gradually built, because it was no concern at all going into the season, right? But it's now become, it keeps going up, is this team doesn't have the bullets to actually score runs versus a team. Like, are we going to be sitting there in the 4th inning of a postseason game going, Jesus, who's going to get us a hit other than the Buxton solo home run? Do we have an answer for that? I mean, this game certainly did not provide it. And it's not because this was not the full lineup, right? I mean, we've got, but I mean, Garver showed nothing tonight.
He hasn't showed anything all year.
Right. I mean, and
to kind of touch on what you're saying there, John, I mean, that's spot on. I mean, we've seen games. There's been, moments here and there throughout the season where the offense has shown up. They've hit 5 home runs in a game. They've put up double-digit runs, I think, once or twice throughout the year. So we've had those fleeting moments where it's like, okay, the Bomba squad is back. This team can hit. They can put up runs. But for the most part, that just hasn't really been there. And so we're in a situation where we're winning 2-1 ball games, 3-2 ball games. And going into the season, that's not at all what we had expected. We had expected a team to come out here and hit the cover off the ball,
right.
Put up 8-10 runs a night on a regular basis. That hasn't been it. But I guess the positive side is the pitching staff has really stepped up. The pitching staff has way outperformed expectations. And they've kept this team in it. They've got them in a situation where they're going to be a playoff team. And so I think it's when we get into postseason, this might be a team that's going to rely on pitching, defense, and timely hitting, which is not at all what we expected, but that's the way it's playing out.
So I took a look at the lineup here. So let me read out the lineup. There's some surprises in this lineup, right? Buxton leadoff. We might want to talk about that at some point, right? That's amazing, right? Then Donaldson, Cruz, Rosario. That's good. Sano, right? Those are the 4 guys that have carried us throughout this, not throughout the season, but that you might be excited about in the 2 through 5 spots. Batting number 6, Garver in his first game back, right? Batting number 7, Cave. Granted versus a right-handed pitcher, so that's not a terrible place for him. Then Polanco, batting 8th, which is a complete surprise. I don't think we've seen him anywhere near that this entire time. And then Marwin Gonzalez hitting 9th, right? I mean, I take a look at that lineup and I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 if you call it Garver, 7 Polanco, maybe 8 if you call it. Basically like 7 or 8-ish of the guys that we would expect to be seeing hitting in the playoffs, right? So, I mean, that's close to a starting lineup. We don't see Arias in there. We don't see Kepler in there, which I think we would both expect to see, right? We would all expect to see. So my question is kind of is like, I'll start this one out to Rena. Like, what are you hoping to see in the next week and a half or 2 weeks? No, we don't have 2 weeks. 2 weeks from now, the postseason is over if this team doesn't gather itself. It's a week from Tuesday that the playoff series starts for whichever team they match up with in the American League. What do we expect to see? What can we hope to see? And what do we need to see before that to give us some real hope that we're not going to get shut out 1-0 by Hendricks?
So right now, this team actually reminds me a lot of the Astros, the lineup. So essentially, I think a big factor of why they haven't been as potent this year is because they had that core at the very top of the rotation with Springer, Altuve, and Bregman. And those 3 essentially got completely dismantled this year where, they're not producing. They've had, of course, injuries on and off. And as a result, the Astros offense has severely suffered, and they've got a couple guys who are, doing okay, but for the most part, their offense is a non-issue for the other teams. And I'm a little surprised that I'm seeing the Twins almost regress a little bit in terms of utilizing their rookie power because, the past couple of weeks with some of the biggest wins that we've seen, of course, they were powered by Rooker, who unfortunately is out for the season. But you've got Jeffers, hitting home runs and getting hits in really crucial spots. We saw Blankenhorn. He got called up for a day, hit a double, and he's essentially gone now. So I see that a little bit more, getting a little bit more of that fire, more of that fuel into the lineup. Because right now you've got guys who have traditionally maybe performed well, whether that's last year in Garver's case or on and off this year. But there just seems to be missing some sort of a spark that, if you're not going to get it before the postseason, you really run the risk of falling into, excuse the pun, the Astros trash can.
well done. So let me ask this: where does that spark come from? I mean, so just so we're clear, the Twins made a move over the last 48 hours, right? 36, 48 hours. They sent Zach Littell off of the 40-man roster. Now, Zach Littell's had a bad year. I kind of presume he has something wrong with him, maybe physically, like the fact that he's not pitching the way he used to. He was a surprise to be demoted to St. Paul. He's now been a surprise to be demoted off of the 40-man roster. The only tricky thing about this is, why was he demoted off of the 40-man roster right now? Right now, it might be because, they thought it would be a good time to get him through waivers and keep him within the organization. But there's nothing specifically about this time of year that would make you think that, right? Like the Tigers could easily, if they wanted Zach Littell, go and grab him and throw him on their 40-man roster and have him for next year, or throw him on the or throw him on the 25-man roster right now for next year, right? Maybe it's just because people think there's they see what is wrong with Zach Littell is as obvious to them as it is obvious to the Twins. It's just not that obvious to us. But the question becomes, now suddenly we've got 39 people on the 40-man roster, right? And so you can make some moves for the postseason. Those moves require, some finagling with injuries and that sort of thing. I saw that sort of thing, and I saw, they're trying to get a speed guy on the roster because they have, 28 roster spots for a 3-man series, and they just want to get some person that they can put for a pinch runner when Nelson Cruz leads off the ninth with a double. Do you know what I mean? Like that's not an uncommon situation, right?
Right.
I mean, the other option is maybe they're looking for a spark. Like maybe they're looking for, like you said, Rita, a spark, right? They're looking for somebody that, and it's not like there aren't some sparks sitting down in St. Paul, whether it's Larnach or something. So my question is sort of like, do we expect the spark to come from this roster, or do we expect the spark to come from something off of this roster? And rather than just stick you with a quick question like that, I'll say this. My answer is, I think they're looking for a spark from this roster. Like, I think they were hoping for more from Mitch Garver than what we saw tonight on those first couple at bats. It feels to me like what we're looking for over these last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games that they've got. They're looking for an offense that we haven't seen in the 53 games of the season. They're looking for from the last 7 games of the season going into the season. But I'm open to ideas on what the other path this team needs to be able to be really competitive or make a drive to the playoffs.
I think you kind of hit it there, John. I think right now they're hoping that they can get that spark from the current roster they have. I think that if anybody is going to be that guy, it's going to be Josh Donaldson. I know he got some flack for the ejection the other night with kicking the dirt, and we all got to admit that was pretty funny.
It was funny. It was a beautifully classic move. It pissed me off when Polanco had to field that ball, and it ended up maybe being the key point of the game.
Yeah, it may have come back to hurt them. He had Adrianza taking the at bat for him, but at the end of the day, like it was funny, and I think it that type of stuff can light a fire under a team. But beyond Donaldson, I don't really see a spark on this roster. And what you were talking about in terms of keeping that last 40-man roster spot open, I think that certainly does open up the Twins to maybe add a guy that can provide that spark for them. Who that's going to be, I don't really know. I kind of felt like Rooker was that guy for a little bit. When he came up, he looked like he really belonged here. He was hitting the ball hard, and then unfortunately he gets hit by a pitch and he braces for him. That thing's going to happen.
What I would say, he was almost assuredly the spark if he's going to end up getting hit with a pitch and end up missing, the next 45 days. Like for sure, that's the perfect example of why he was in fact the spark. If you're a Minnesota Twins fan, that's perfect. Right.
Right. But yeah, as it is right now, it's a really tough question to answer. I don't really see a current spark, and they are kind of in this game where we got less than 10 games left in the season, and we're just hoping that Kepler gets hot and Donaldson gets hot, and they go into the postseason and the team's rolling. And if that doesn't happen, I don't know what happens there.
How about you, Rena? Let me ask you this: like, if you're who are you rooting for a spark here, or where do you see that spark coming?
I would say that Josh Donaldson's cleat just so gently rubbing against home plate is probably the spark I've seen from this roster in a couple of days. I know I've said this in previous post-game pints, and I'm going to die on the hill of the Boba Fett effect. I mean, we can grind these guys on the roster as much as we want, but the fact is, when Rooker was here and, his season ended on such a classic Minnesota note, everyone played better. And with, essentially the season sealed at this point, why not try it now? I mean, your magic number's down to 2, probably not going to win the division. The best thing you can do is bring up someone. Hopefully they'll, give you a little bit of turbulence going into the postseason, or you just stay the way that you are and then potentially play the series at Yankee Stadium. Like, I don't really see a lose situation with, bringing up someone else. And maybe they will be the next shot. Who knows?
Oh, cool. All right. One of the things I would encourage all of you, we got people watching on YouTube, we got people watching on Facebook, we got people watching on Twitter. All of them have little comment areas, right? And we get all of those comments. We can see them. Can you guys see them, Andrew, Rena? Can you guys see them?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And we can throw them onto the screen. And I'm going to throw the first one onto the screen, which is Buxton leadoff. Finally, more. All right. So let me temper this a little bit. Buxton's on base percentage this year is, I think, 270, something like that. It's not much higher than 270, right? No, it started at 250. It's gone up the last couple of days because he's gotten a lot of hits, right? And Jesus, Donaldson not so good. So ideally, you would want a leadoff hitter with a higher on base percentage. That being said, it seems like he's been in the 7, 8, 9 positions all year in this roster, and obviously he's been hot as hell right now, and he was just erased on a double play because, of course. But anyway, how do we feel about there are pros and cons to Buxton leading off? Right? A lot of cons, but there's some pros there too. I'd like to hear what you guys both think about Buxton leading off. As would your fella. Your fella. Fulla.
Your fella. Your fella.
Your fella. We'll go with your fella.
Your fella. Your fella. Let us know in the comments how to pronounce it. No, I think
you're full of what?
You're full of.
We're not questioning. We're not questioning what you're full of.
Full of greatness. Obviously, the biggest glaring sign that's flashing at all of us is injury. He's going to get obviously more chances to get on base. We know how Buxton plays. He will do anything to get an extra base. But at the same time, I mean, he's the only guy, correct me if I'm wrong, the only guy who's been on base twice tonight. So you definitely get, a little bit of both of that. But again,
I agree with you, Ray. Like he's the hottest hitter in the lineup. There's no question about that right now. I have no problem with him batting leadoff on this situation. And I mean, that might be, I'm buying into the whole sort of hot hand theory, but I mean, that's what he's been, right?
Right. And I think a lot of people, they look at Buxton's speed and they think, oh, he's fast, he should hit leadoff, but just having that speed tool doesn't make you a leadoff hitter. And he's not a prototypical leadoff hitter. He's not the ideal guy. He doesn't get on base all that much, but sticking with the ride the hot hand narrative here, that's where they're at right now with Buxton, is he's the best hitter in the lineup. So why not put him at the top and try to get a spark plug going? So for where we're at right now, totally on board with it.
Yeah, and so we're clear, Rena, you're absolutely right. He's the only guy to have gotten on base twice tonight. Legitimately gotten on base. Okay, good. All right, let's pull up another question from the audience here. Let's see. Oh, well, this is a good one. Yeah, we've been talking a little bit for good reason about how much the offense has struggled. But pretty impressive outing by Rich Hill tonight.
It was. I was surprised to see him go as deep as he did.
Especially after
I don't
the
know
start.
if over 25 pitches in the first inning. Did it end
Right.
up going? Did he finish the sixth?
Let's see.
Pretty sure he
He
finished
went-
the sixth.
He finished the seventh. He went a full
He finished
7
the
innings
seventh.
tonight, 3 hits, 2 walks, 5 strikeouts, and just 1 run, obviously. Earned.
Yeah,
because he walked the first 2 guys that he faced.
Yeah, much better effort than I thought we were going to get out of him. But even still, I'm not totally sold on putting him in the 4 spot in a postseason rotation. It depends on Odorizzi's health, but if Odorizzi comes back, I'd like to see Maeda, Barrios, Pineda, Odorizzi. Maybe you can flip-flop Pineda and Odorizzi. But right now, those are my top 4. I don't have a ton of confidence in Rich Hill.
So, Rena, let me ask you. We've got a question from LWest63. Who do you think will be the starting pitchers come playoff time? I'll grant it to you 2 ways. First is first round of the playoffs, which is obviously the most important. You need 3 for that, right? And then also, what does the rest of it look like if you advance, or are you ready to commit?
So I think
and it's okay if you're not, just so we're clear.
No, this is actually one of my favorite topics because I think everyone on Twins Twitter and in Twins universe agree that the top 3 would be Maeda, Barrios, Pineda. I mean, that's no argument there.
Sure.
And so if we were moving on to if we were in a 5
Hold it. Is there a maybe?
I haven't seen anyone else say anything different,
Okay,
and that's
good.
where I wholeheartedly agree. So
Okay, good. All right.
So I would actually put Hill in the number 4 spot just because of his experience, age, and how many, postseasons was he involved with the Dodgers. I just think that that's something that's a little bit hard to define, but something extremely, extremely valuable. And especially with, Jake Odorizzi's latest stint on the IL, I might trust him a little bit more in the number 5 spot. I would love to see, though, both of those guys handcuffed a little bit to like a Jorge Alcala, Matt Whistler, maybe Randy Dobnik. I still like the idea of him coming back because he can eat up 4 or 5 innings. And again, I would have liked to see him actually pitch in, the 4th, 5th, 6th inning behind, Jake Odorizzi before the season's over, but that's still something that I think he'd be extremely, extremely beneficial in the postseason.
Well, that's an interesting point because here's the thing. Dobnik got sent down a couple of days ago. But my take on that was sort of in the same way that they send down, for 2 years now, we've been seeing they send down the 13th person in the bullpen. And by 13th person in the bullpen, I mean whoever just threw 50 pitches, so they're not available for the next few games, one way or the other, down, and then they call somebody up to throw 50 more pitches, right? And I saw that I presume that was the case with Dobnik, but that was on the assumption that Odorizzi was available to pitch, right? That they wanted Odorizzi to get another start in or something like that, and that they would call Dobnik in potentially as a reliever. And in fact, on twinsdaily.com, which I will try and pull up right this second, Matthew Trueblood makes a compelling case for why Randy Dobnik should potentially be a long person bullpen in the playoffs, right? That in fact, let's just pull that up. Can you see that? There we go. Oh, good. We're still on there. Good. Great. Oh, it's terrible. You guys want to see an ad for TransUnion? There we go. You can see a great ad or a great piece on Matthew Trueblood talking a little bit about why Randy Dobnik might be a really good option for the Twins bullpen. I do like the idea of throwing them somebody at like Dobnik in the bullpen just because he is an odd pitching style to be in the bullpen, right? I don't know. So hold on. I think what I heard from you, Rena, I'm going to make you commit now, right? Is you're on the same three that everybody else is in. 4 and 5 are Hill.
4 was Hill, 5 was Odorizzi.
Okay. All right. Good. Good to hear it. How about you, Andrew? Where are you at?
Like I touched on earlier, I think the top three obviously is Maeda, Barrios, Pineda. I think if Odorizzi is healthy, I'd like to see him in the 4, Hill 5, and I was on the post-game pint on Wednesday night with Seth. We talked a little bit about Dobnak, and I kind of see him as like the 6th starter, if you will, that long guy out of the bullpen who can give you 3-4 innings, maybe start if you need him to, but ultimately I don't really want to see Dobnak in the postseason rotation.
Okay, cool. Let's see. All right, we got one. This is an interesting point. Donaldson's not the person I would count on for a spark. Get Kirilov up, replace Adrianza with Lewis, shake it up. Okay. I'll say this, Mike Link. That seems a little extreme at this point. I mean, this team, just so we're clear, was 3-4 games ago. I mean, literally Sunday night, right? Monday morning was a team that looked like it was absolutely ready for the playoffs, right? Just had swept Cleveland. But I'll grant this. Watching a week's worth of games, watching an offense struggle. Now, offenses struggle. It's not necessarily an indictment. For 5 days, they struggle in a baseball season. We don't take that as an indictment of them across the board. It feels odd to make any sort of huge changes based on 5 days worth of stuff. That said, I don't have a ton of confidence about this team going into the playoffs with this lineup right now. I don't know. Convince me one way or the other that I'm wrong. Like, should I have more confidence, or am I right about being a little bit pessimistic? And Andrew and Rena. So somebody cheer me up and somebody tell me, no, I'm right.
You're so right in that you're very optimistic about the pitching. I think
okay.
Is, better than expected. It's up there with, honestly, I think, don't quote me, but Cleveland, the Dodgers, some of the best rotations we've seen in baseball. I mean, I know that its rank in terms of like ERA and WHIP and things like that are higher than the team's offensive stats, like home runs, batting average, things like that. Maybe not home runs, but if that makes you feel any better.
Okay, it does. Thank you. I appreciate that. Andrew, are you going to make me feel better or worse about this team?
I'm not going to do much to make you feel better. I think you're kind of spot on. I have a lot of concerns about this team going to the postseason, and I don't want to upset anybody tonight, but I was texting with fellow Twins Daily writer Matt Braun about this today. And
Matt Braun's in a wet blanket. I don't want to hear from Matt Braun. He's going to bring me down.
As it stands right now, I don't see this team making a deep postseason run, and I hope I'm wrong. I really do. But the way they're playing right now, it's hard to see this team really going deep in the postseason. They got to get hot. They got to figure something out. They need that spark like we talked about.
All right. Mike also brings up we have now lost 4 of 5, but the bats have been lacking all year, and pitching has carried us. I agree. Like, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you, Mike. It's correct. I agree. I don't know. Do you guys agree with that statement? Like, we expected this season to be all about a bomba squad, a great offense covering up for, hopefully very good pitching. You know what I mean? We spent the offseason talking about starting pitching, right? All we could talk about is we got to get better pitching. We got to get better pitching. We got to get better pitching. Bullpen's good, but we got to get better pitching. And what we ended up with is better pitching from the starting rotation, a bullpen that carried us for, and this is my opinion, so you guys can react, right? A bullpen that carried us for 2/3 of the year, and an offense that just sat there kind of lackluster doing things. We finally thought that maybe they were coming alive last week, and then this week we're shut out by Kyle Hendricks. Am I wrong? Am I going crazy? Am I taking crazy pills?
Speaking of starting pitching, I actually made this point on Twitter yesterday, and I just remembered Homer Bailey might come back too.
I know.
He had a good start. He was around, and he's pitched in the postseason. He might be pretty good in the postseason.
Is that where I'm at now? Is that my life now? I'm hoping for a big postseason for Homer Bailey. That's my hope.
That's kind of where we're at right now. But I guess what I'll add to Mike Link's comment, and this has kind of been a theme throughout the year, this team has not played well on the road. Their home road splits are just atrocious. And I think if we played the White Sox and the Cubs at home this week, we probably don't lose 4 out of 5. So the beat on the road plays into it. But overall, it's been some pretty rough baseball to watch.
Yeah. All right. I don't know. Any other big topics of this game before we've got a good crowd here now. I hate to sign off. I'll throw this one up. Should Maeda pitch on 3 days rest in an elimination game? I think that's a valid question to ask because the way the postseason works out, you've got 3 games in a row for first week. Then they wait until Monday the next week to play again. And then they play 5 games, no off days, all in a row to see how it goes. My guess is that we're talking about a 4-man rotation for that, and that you have to have ready to go Maeda in Game 5 and a bunch of bullpen people after that, or maybe you just start a bullpen game in Game 5 and Maeda comes in at some point. I don't know exactly how you play that thing. That'd be an interesting thing to kind of unpack. But I mean, right now I'm worried about this team getting through the week 1 of the season. I'm taking a look right now at the standings, and I mean we are lined up versus the Yankees in Game 1. We just lost a game, and if I'm taking a look at the Yankees game right now,
I think they're losing.
Oh, they are losing to the Red Sox in the top of the 9th with 2 outs and bases empty. Do we want to make a bet? Do we want to make a bet on whether or not?
Singing "Sweet Caroline."
Mark, today.
And they just tied it up. I swear to God, they just tied it up. 4-4 now. 2 outs in the 9th inning. They just tied it up. The Yankees did, which means if they win this game, they're tied with the Twins. And I mean, not that it matters in terms of whether or not we face them. We're going to face them probably either way. It's just which team has home field advantage, right? If the Yankees win and the Twins just lost, they will be tied with the Twins for home field advantage in the first round of the playoffs. The Twins would not have that advantage at Target Field. They would get to play on the road. And in fact, the weird thing about that is that although there should not be any real home field advantage this year, Twins are 102-3 at home right now. Like, it's crazy, right? They're really good, right? So, all right. Let me see if there's any more big questions from the Twitter account that we should do. Yeah, and the Yankees here. Let's just do this one. And the Yankees have now tied the Red Sox. Right, good. All right. All right. I'll throw one more out there, and then we'll wrap it up. Sorry. I've got a lot of questions on Polanco, which I think is worth talking about just because we finally saw him dropped in the order today, right? I mean, he's been batting 1, 2, 3. He was the cleanup hitter at one point during the White Sox series today. He's batting 8 today. And listen, I'm actually a huge Polanco fan. And in fact, even this year when he wasn't hitting for power, I felt like it was something where he was trying to make an adjustment and take it to opposite fields and hit for a higher average. It felt to me like he was working on something. And to this moment, I wonder if he's not battling something, because it's way too often that I see him swing and miss and then just kind of strut around like he's stretching out his back or something like that, like there's something going on. But, you take a look at Kepler, you take a look at Polanco, you take a look at a lot of the stalwarts that were in the middle of this lineup. They're just not performing this year. Do we have a theory on what's going on?
I'm also kind of towards maybe just wear and tear. I mean, last year he played almost 150, 140 games.
Right.
I mean, granted, he was an all-star and was actually voted in, but regardless, I mean, I've noticed the same things where he doesn't have nearly as much power as he did last year. It kind of seems like he might be making some sort of adjustment. He's much worse hitting from the left side than the right side, if I remember that correctly. And it just seems like he hasn't been right side than the left side.
Sorry about that. No, you're good. I was just waving to me.
You're right. But anyway, that's kind of my overall take on Polanco. It doesn't seem like he's been getting a lot of rest this year either. And I saw an article on Twitter, the most reliable source on the internet, that Ire is actually a very sufficient defender at shortstop. So we could give Jorge Polanco just a couple days off here and there to adjust, figure himself out, just to not have that continuous wear and tear on him. And he's important, and I'd like to see him get better.
Yeah, let me just pull up one comment that I think is probably here. This is the one.
No, you're
and
good.
I'm not beating up KJ Johnson on this. I think that is the perception of him on TV. I will tell you, as somebody who's been a little closer, I get exactly the opposite sense, that he is not disinterested. That, in fact, he's one of those guys that is living on spite or living on proving everybody else wrong. That if you want to know why Jorge Polanco last year started out strong and then, went through off-season surgery, right? Knee surgery or ankle surgery, hip surgery. I can't remember exactly what it was. He had something going on that, you could take a look at the second half of his year last year and go, oh, yeah, that makes sense. That's why he faded, right? He had something going on that he got everything cleared out, right? But he just played through it. It's exactly the opposite of him being disinterested. He's a little too competitive, and he's quietly competitive, and he doesn't sit there and bang the drum about it. He just sits and really grinds. And if you're asking me why Polanco, I think this year is struggling, that's what I think it is. I think there's something going on, and he's just that guy that is not going to ever take himself out of the lineup. I mean, literally, he had surgery at the end of last year, and how many, like you said, Rena, how many games did he play last year? 152 or something like that, right? Like he was not taking himself out of that lineup, right? Now this year, I don't know if that's a help. 60 games. We've seen Luis Arias trying to come back, trying to play through. It hasn't been particularly helpful. So I don't know. All right, let's wrap it up. Any last comments on the Meat Sauce says? Sorry, I ruined it. Which he did. I ruined it, Sauce, by putting you up there and actually waving at you. I feel bad. I blame you, Rena. Right.
I blame you.
All right. Any last takeaways from this game, folks?
Just kind of what I led off with. Just a frustrating night against a frustrating pitcher in Kyle Hendricks. It's going to happen.
You want to give way too much credit to Kyle Hendricks, I feel like.
This is what he does. This Kyle Hendricks, and I just hope this team can figure something out when they get home for the last two series of the season, get something clicking, go into the postseason better than they are right now, and that's all we can kind of hope for at this point, really.
How about you, Rena?
Yeah, I really wanted to add something also to that Jorge Polanco conversation we just had, which also sort of has to do with this game, but not completely. I kind of feel bad because I think he sort of lives under the shadow of all of these big name shortstops. You've got Baez in the NL. You've got Lindor, who's constantly sitting on him essentially for the top name in the AL Central. And we just need to sometimes sit back and recognize that he is a workhorse. He's trying. And even if his results aren't necessarily top notch and 10 out of 10 every time, taking a step back and analyzing that. And like you said, some of the background things that might be going on in his mind are going to be important, but more days off.
just real quick, he was also the starting shortstop for the All-Star game last year. He's not terribly far from that. I'm not ready to write off Jorge Polanco yet. I guess my takeaway on this would be one really big positive step forward by Rich Hill, which is great if we get past the first week of the playoffs. But to get past the first week of the playoffs, we now have about 10 days to figure out our offense. And that's after not figuring out our offense for 7 or 8 weeks. Today we saw Mitch Garver come back. It wasn't a great return. We still have not seen a rise back. We've got Kepler was out of the lineup. I'm all for resting guys, but we've got to get a Sunday night. I could not have felt more like this offense was on the rise, right? We had just come off of the Cleveland series. We've been hitting the Bombas. Things were feeling good again. 5 days later, it feels like that was all a mirage. Maybe that's just the way baseball is, right? Maybe that's just the terrifying truth of small sample size, 5 games at a time. But I would hope that we would see some hints over these last 7 games that we've got an offense that is somewhere near what we anticipated at the beginning of the season. So, all right. Thank you very much to Andrew Gebo. Thank you very much to Rena Wang for joining us. Thank you to everybody who joined us, and especially to those who actually threw something into the comments, except for Meat Sauce, who totally ruined the broadcast, as he said. We will have another post-game. You can find all of these recordings of these post-game pints. If you missed the beginning of it, we joined at about the bottom of the 8th, probably. You can find it on our Twins Daily Facebook page. You can find it on our YouTube Facebook page. You can find it at postgamepint.com. You can find it, and you can find the next one, which is going to be tomorrow night at probably 10 o'clock. It's hosted by Seth Stowe at postgamepint.com. Again, thank you all for contributing, and we'll talk to you tomorrow night.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Have a good night.